All right, guys, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo here, a dreary, kind of gray, rainy day. We're 16 days out from the exam, so let's get excited for that. And we're going to do the Age of Exploration, Transatlantic Economy. We will do some trade routes, and if you want, we can buzz through absolutism, and we should be all wrapped up for the AP exam. Today we're going over the Age of Exploration, and this was a map of the known world at the time, like, just as the beginning of the Renaissance, going into the 1400s. So you can see that, the Mediterranean looks pretty good. Spain, France, Italy, Greece, Turkey look real good, but Great Britain, this is Great Britain, and up in here is this Iceland. There's kind of like this Bering Strait kind of thing going up in here. You look at Africa, the north coastline is good, going around the shoulder socket, but down here, like, what is this? And you've got the Middle East, and then like India and South Asia is just kind of like a blob, let alone like, China, or there's no Japan. And if there's no Japan, what else is missing? What? Uh-oh, it might be the Americas. So this is the map of the known world getting ready to head into the Age of Exploration. And so, whoops, come on, there we go. A couple inventions are going to come out of this Renaissance area. Number one is the Astrolabe. It's kind of this circular device, kind of like a sundial, with a little kind of telescope on it. And what it does, if you find a fixed spot, let's say like the North Star, it will calculate the attitude of celestial body in relation to the horizon. And what it does is it allows you to measure your distance laterally, like latitude, like doing an athletic shuffle, all right? You can go side to side this way. The only problem is it doesn't help you go north and south longitude, but it's a start. Before this, there was the magnetic compass that were kind of designed by the early Chinese, but this is the time where people thought if you went too far into the Atlantic, you would fall off the edge of the earth. And then coming in later is a complicated yet simple device known as a sextant, which is kind of like a telescope. Think of Galileo and Kepler and Brahe. You have the horizon mirror, the index mirror, and the telescope, and this micrometer head. And what this will do is measure an arc of 60 degrees. And what it can do, if you again at one certain time of day get a heavenly body, it will give you the distance between objects. So how far you have traveled in one day. So this is better, all right? We now not only have the Astrolabe, but the Sextant. And if you use those together, you can get Mercator projection, which is the latitude, the east-west lines, and the longitude, north-south lines on a map using 0 degrees here, I'm running through Greenwich. Now you have these squares where you can plot your exact distance on a map. Think of like, Percy Jackson, or, latitude and longitude coordinates that you would use with a compass. Nowadays we have GPS to do this for us, but back in the old days, you had to be able to read a compass and get a slide rule and a ruler, and Kevin's probably working with them right now, and you could find your location. So coupled with advances in technology, there are also transportation improvements, and the best one is going to be the Spanish caravel. And the caravel is going to take into consideration like Viking ship technology. It's going to take into account the Chinese junk and the Arabic dhow. And what you're going to have is a three-masted ship with this very high curved bow of the ship, kind of like a Viking ship to plow through the waves. It's also going to have the squared or even triangular lateen sails that you can raise and lower, based on the wind. For you know, if there's a high wind, lower the sails for stability. A little bit of wind, drop them down, and you could angle them to curve the wind if you're sailing into the wind to this back little sail here, which would circulate the wind even if you're sailing into it, turn it around and allow it to propel you forward. All right, so 2 or 3 masted ship with its cargo hold, its high bow with the stern post rudder and the keel back here at the stern. This allows people, here's the triangular lateen sail. This allows you to go farther, faster, and safer. And so here's a good look at the lateen sails here. This one is kind of like the shutters that I told you guys about in class, and the ability to redirect oncoming wind to cycle it around to help propel you forward. So this is a major improvement. It was used in China and on the Indian Ocean trade. Now it's going to be taken to cross the Atlantic. And so at this time, we're into the 1400s, well into our time period. We're now going to switch from 1200 to 1450 and go like 1450 on up into 1750. All right. And it's here where Europeans were ready to begin their exploration. They're ready to move beyond what they can see just in Europe. And while the Renaissance is putting an emphasis and an interest in what human beings can do, human potential, the age of exploration is going to test that. So with the compass, the Astrolabe, the Sextant, the Caravel, the lateen sail, all good pieces of evidence technology, this is what's going on. At precisely the same time in the world, this is the high point of the Aztec civilization, the high point of the Incan civilization. It is the decline of the Yuan dynasty, the Mongol dynasty in China, getting ready for the great Ming dynasty, and it's when the Ottoman and the gunpowder empires are beginning to formulate and become massively powerful. So why did Europeans want to go and explore? Well, it's simple answer, the 3 G's: God, gold, and glory. All right, number 1, we are doing this to go find gold. At this point in the world, wealth is measured in gold and silver. The more of it you have, the wealthier you are. It's also competitive. Right? You want to be richer than your country. The old rivalries, England, Spain, France, their round robin tournament, the Netherlands jumping in, Portugal. And then there is God. This is a religious thing. God told us to go help those poor heathens. We need to convert their souls. All right. Martin Luther's Protestant Reformation is going to start. So we are competing for souls. Catholics against Protestants, Protestants against Catholics. And last but not least, glory. There's that old saying, I want to be famous. I want everyone to know who I am. Fame, riches, and glory. And the best way to achieve getting gold, God, and glory is to find the fastest route to Asia. Instead of going around Africa, the dangerous Cape of Good Hope, there's got to be a faster way. And if we're in Europe and there's cheap sources in India, as sources come, whether it's by the Venetian trading states or overland on the Silk Road, every time that product changes hands at a trading depot, the price goes up. Right? So instead of going to Harris Teeter and Walmart and Target, go right to Sam's Club or go right to Costco. You got to buy more, right? And you got to pay that membership, but you can get it in bulk at 5-gallon, tub of peanut butter at a cheaper price. So we want to cut out that middleman. And the things we're after are spices: sugar, pepper, cinnamon, ginger, curry. All of those things, salt, all of those things are big money, plus luxury goods like silk, like porcelain. And so you can gain a lot of money, you can also become famous, and there's the underlying Christian crusade. So it is the Portuguese that are going to get a head start on this. They're going to try and find this faster, quicker route into Asia. Now this is a dangerous journey. It is a long, long way. You got to go down around Africa. You got to cross the Indian Ocean, storms, the trade winds, monsoons, scurvy, rickets, you name it. But if you make it, you make one round trip, you would earn more money than you ever would in your entire life. So it is worth the risk for a lot of people to be the first one to do it. You're going to become rich. And trade along the Silk Road for years had been the only way to do this. And way back when, it was safe. There was the Roman Empire, then there was the Byzantine Empire, right? Then the old Persian Empire, and then you had the Mughal dynasty and the Han dynasty of China, and all that was fine. And then you had the Mongol Empire. Well, now with the different gunpowder empires of the Safavids, the Mughals, did I say Mughal Empire? Earlier I meant the Gupta and Maurya Empire in India, excuse me. And, when you had these powerful entities, trading was safe. Well, now with the Safavids and the Mughals and the Ottomans, it's dangerous. There's bandits. It takes a long time. There's different competing Islamic groups. There's the Crusades going on. Oh, the heck with this, man. There's got to be a better way. And so this process, as you can see here, is much difficult. So now we're going to go directly to the source. Enter this guy with his nice goofy hat here, Prince Henry, known as Prince Henry the Navigator of Portugal. Now, during the Reconquista, all right, Muslims were pushed out of Portugal and Spain. And they're down now back into North Africa. And good old Prince Henry wants to go help a Christian king that he hears about, a guy named Prester John. He wants to go down there and help this African king in North Africa against the Muslims. All right? And so to do that, he's got an underlying, idea in his mind to get wealthy and to make improvements. So his excuse is, I'm going to go down and help Prester John. But what he really wants to do is make it over here to India. Below this line, all right, with modern day Gabon or so, we really didn't know a whole lot about it. So Prince Henry is going to set up navigational schools, and he's going to set up trading posts along the way to enable his guys to make it over to India. And while they're doing that, all right, they're going to trade in West Africa. All right, we're going to start with gold. We're going to go for ivory. Eventually it's salt, and diabolically, eventually, yay, Portugal, it's going to become slaves. Well done, guys. Ronaldo and all that stuff. So we're going to set up trading posts like the pictures I showed you in Africa yesterday to go further and further and map this coastline and set up trade routes. Well, the Portuguese are going to leapfrog down the African coast. All right. So let's say, what class haven't we talked about in a while? Let's go with, second period. All right, Anne-Marie is going to sail for 30 days. She's going to take 30 days of food and water with her, and she's going to sail down the African coast. When she gets to day 15, she's going to come back, and she's going to hand, like a relay baton, she's going to hand it to Amelia. And Amelia is now going to, instead of taking 30 days, she's going to take 60 days, and she's going to go till she uses half of it, about 30 days. She's going to turn around, and she is going to come back. Then she's going to hand her baton off to Eva, who's going to take it for 90 days, and then Ben's going to take it for 120 days. And eventually, by doing that, they're going to get all the way to the bottom of North Africa, farther and farther and farther sailing each time. Now, unfortunately, Prince Henry is never going to live to see this to completion. He dies right before the Portuguese make it around the Horn of Africa. Again, this horn is called the Cape of Good Hope because, number one, you want to hope you make it around. You have the dangerous Indian Ocean current meeting the South Atlantic current. It's compressed between Africa and Antarctica. If you're a fan of Shark Week, this is where the jumping great whites jump out and eat things. So it was terrifying to these sailors. So the guy to come the closest is Bartholomew Diaz. And Bartholomew is going to come down here in 14, 1488, and he is going to make it around the Cape of Good Hope. He makes it around Africa, but right here he runs out of supplies. There's no good harbor here. He didn't know where Madagascar was, and he hoped that India was right here. So he has to turn around and he has to go back. But he proves that this can be done. And so he's like, oh, I'm so close. Curse you, Barry the Platypus. All right, I will destroy the Cape of Good Hope and make it to India. But he doesn't quite make it. So he hands the baton to, a guy who as Bartholomew did most of the work. It is Vasco de Gama, who in 1497, he had done several different voyages and mapping things. He had taken all of the knowledge that had been gained, and he makes it around the coast of Africa. Sails between like Mozambique and Madagascar, and he makes it over to India. He successfully makes it. He's found this route to India. Now, people had invested in his ship. He buys a lot of spices very, very, very cheap at the source. And this journey could take, 6 months to a year, it all depends. My man turns around and he makes it back. And he is a big time hero. And so when he sells everything, he's crazy, fabulously wealthy. He's stupid rich. The first thing he does instead of resting is he goes out with his own money that he made and he outfits a series of ships and he goes right back. And he gets permission to buy some warehouses on the coast of India, and he leaves men behind. They are going to wait for the harvest time or market time. They're going to buy goods cheap at the source, put them in the warehouse, and when Vasco's ship shows up, they can load up the hold, and it'll turn around and go right back. So this way, every 6 months to a year, De Gama has ships on a rotating basis. So Portugal has one. Vasco de Gama is rich and wealthy. The king's like, woo, look at me. But their neighbor to the east, Spain, does not want to be outdone. All right, they're bigger. They theoretically believe they're more powerful. They don't want to lose to tiny stinking Portugal. And it's at this time they've got the legendary Habsburg king and queen, King Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain. They are fabulously wealthy, so they finance a trip over here. And not only do they want to rival Portugal, they want to find a quicker way to do it. They also, being deeply Roman Catholic, want to spread Catholicism. So they put an ad in the paper, so to speak, and they get on LinkedIn.com, and they're looking for an experienced sailor to pick up their mantle. And they settle on an Italian sailor named Christopher Columbus. Columbus has his own ideas about how to get to India. I don't need to copy De Gama and go around Africa. I'm going to break and I'm going to go west across the Atlantic. Ooh, Columbus, you can't do that. There are sea monsters. You'll fall off the edge. He's like, no. I think it's right over there. So Columbus will outfit 3 ships. And on August 3rd, 1492, we're going to start school early next year, so not too long after the start of school, he's going to set sail on the 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Now, whether you love Columbus or you hate him, think he's a villain, yes, he killed, thousands of natives in Hispaniola looking for gold. Weirdly, if you ever go down there, they idolize the guy, and there's a big, tomb and shrine and museum to him. They think he's buried there. Whatever you feel about Columbus, I give Columbus credit for one thing. If you ever go up to the Norfolk, Maritime Museum, you will see recreations of the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. And, dude, those things are small. For him to, I'm sure other people have made it over here, Leif Erikson, who knows, but Columbus made it over and back safely, and he wrote about it. And if you see those ships, you're like, dang, dude, I ain't getting on one of those. So I give him props for that. And sailing on water has never bothered me. But those things are just not all that big. Anyway, Columbus wants to find this route by going west. And it takes months to get over here. No one knew how long it was. His guys were going to mutiny, and Columbus is like, well, you can kill me, but I'm the only one who knows how to use navigational instruments, so you can kill me, but that ain't going to help you. And eventually, in October, they make it to the Bahamas. Now, Columbus believes he is in India. And so he starts calling the people Indians. And as you see, he sails all around, the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico down here, believing the whole time he was in India. Didn't find the spices, didn't find the gold, but he makes it over and back not once, but 4 times. And his journey nearly causes a war between England and Portugal, who now that Columbus made it, everybody is going for this territory, and the Pope had to step in and sign one of the famous treaties of Paris saying, you get this and you get that, there will be no shenanigans between you two. So, speaking of that, now that Columbus has discovered the New World, believing that he was in India, even though he was, many thousand miles off, England jumps into the game, the island nation of Great Britain. And their big sailor, John Cabot, who 5 years after Columbus, believes that he wants to find what is called the Northwest Passage, the all-water route that would lead through North America. Same thing that President Jefferson sent Lewis and Clark to find. He goes up into here, not as quite far as Hudson's Bay, and he looks for it, but he never finds it. He tries to find a more northerly route, but he runs into Greenland and Canada and areas like that. Oak Island, if you're a fan of the Oak Island TV show. And now we go back to Portugal, the guys who started it all. And here we have Amerigo Vespucci. All right, about 10 years after John Cabot. And Amerigo comes over and he looks at Columbus's route and he kind of sails around, and then he goes farther south and he has some of the same problems as Columbus did. His storms and his mast was wrecking, and he goes down here and finds South America. All right, so when he's done, he realizes as he gets over and around Florida and the Gulf of Mexico that this is not India. It is brand new land, and so he begins to call it the Americas. He claims them. So North and South America are named for this guy, Amerigo Vespucci, who determines that this is part of Aladdin Says to Jasmine, a whole new world. And so by this time, this is what we have. If you remember that first map I showed you, the Mediterranean is great. Africa looks a whole lot better. Madagascar is kind of here. Even though they've made it to India, India and South Asia is still not quite right. Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia over here, still not too good. China's kind of a blurb. And then look over here. Here's South America, and here is the Gulf of Mexico and kind of the Caribbean. And North America is just a hot mess, but at least it's been added. So we're more accurate here, less so here, and we kind of know about this, but not a whole lot about it. And so this will bring in the legendary Ferdinand Magellan, 1519. His story is kind of interesting. He wants to lead a voyage to sail across the newly discovered Pacific Ocean, this peaceful blue ocean, a guy named Balboa found, and not Rocky, but another guy. And he looks for able-bodied seamen. So he holds interviews in Spain and interviews guys. Hey, we're going to go on a long voyage. How long? Not really sure. 2, maybe 3 years. Where are we going? I can't really tell you. How much are we going to make? Well, if we make it, you'll get rich. So let me get this right. You can't tell me how long we're going to be gone. Correct. You can't tell us where we're going. Correct. And if we live, we're going to become rich. I don't know who would take that deal, but 250 guys do. They set sail on 250 guys on 5 ships. And they sail around South America. They get down, and there's a big storm, and their mast of their ship cracks. They got to pull up in Brazil, Argentina, I think it's Argentina, where they bring another tree in. They come into contact with natives and buy fruit, and they go down around South America. And it's extremely dangerous, right? Again, you've got South America, Antarctica, the Atlantic Ocean current, the Pacific Ocean current. It's freezing cold. There's icebergs. There's a great old Russell Crowe movie called Master and Commander that does a good job of what it looks like to sail around here. Well, they find the Straits of Magellan near the bottom of South America a little bit, very close to Tierra del Fuego, and they make it over. And Magellan sails up the coast, and it's Chile, and he's like, oh my God, this place sucks. Let's turn and cross the Pacific. And where he goes is probably the worst spot. Like, he will miss like the French Polynesian islands, like, you know, Tahiti and Fiji and you know, Vanuatu and all the, you know, the islands famous for the Carolines and the Marshalls and the Solomons from, like, you know, World War II and the TV show Survivor in Hawaii. And there's virtually no land between him and the Philippines. And so the guys are dehydrated and sunbaked. They're eating shoe leather. There's no fresh water. Guys are dying. But they finally make it to the Philippines. And the people of the Philippines are ecstatic. They get these emaciated, you know, scurvy-ridden guys. Oh, I died of the scurvy. It's like on the Pioneer Trail. As they get ashore in the Philippines, they're rejuvenated, and the natives say, hey man, since we helped you out, I'm going to need you to help us. Can you go help us fight this neighboring tribe with these thundersticks and stuff? And they're like, yeah, dude, let's go and help out. Well, in the battle between villages, several of Magellan's men are killed, and he himself is killed. Of the 5 ships that went, only 1 makes it back to Spain. It took 3 years, and out of the 250 guys, only 18 make it back alive. But Magellan gets credit for his group to become the first to completely circumnavigate and sail around the entire world. So by the time we're done, this is the map of Africa, or of the world. Africa is much more accurate. India is accurate. We've got Southeast Asia. Japan is kind of there. And here's the overland Silk Roads. It's not, again, it's the Silk Road, but there's many branches. The Golden Horde going up into Russia. And here comes the new transatlantic trade routes. And you have things, you know, coming out of India, like ginger and curry and tea. From Africa, we have bananas, coca beans coming from the Caribbean, corn and potatoes and beans coming from North America, and squash, and silk and glassware and porcelain, horses coming over. So there's now, because of the age of exploration, a completely global trade network. The Silk Road, the Indian Ocean, to the Trans-Sahara, now to the transatlantic trade routes. And so getting into this is going to be the Netherlands, right? That, you know, tiny country of the Netherlands. And they are trying to rival Portuguese naval supremacy. So you've got tiny Portugal and the tiny Netherlands getting out of the gate. Well, by 1599, a Portuguese fleet's going to make it back from Asia. Excuse me. A Dutch fleet makes it back from Asia in 1599. Everybody who invested in that ship makes an enormous sum of money. Their investment was double, triple, quadruple. So when word hits, everybody wants in. And so here is where the Netherlands will create the first joint stock trading company, the Dutch East India Company, or the DEIC. If you've ever seen the Ocean's 11 and 12 movies, well, in Ocean's 12, they've got to go steal an original stock certificate in the Netherlands from the DEIC. So when the Dutch start doing this, getting, you know, citizens to invest in their ships, Portugal counters by trying to form partnerships and relationships with the natives. They don't try to convert. They don't try to intrude. It is all business. Well, the Dutch are smart, and this is what makes them a rival for a while of like Portugal, Spain, even kind of England. They create a dual-purpose fleet of a cargo ship that has a deep hold full of cargo, but is heavily armed with naval sailors and marines to do battle against other countries and even pirates. So the Dutch are smart. They try and stay out of the way of the Spanish shipping lanes. They kind of go out and around in the long road, but they are the ones who build that small outpost in Cape Town in South Africa in 1652 and disrupt the Khoikhoi. So as a result, the Americas are going to be colonized. The green is going to be colonized by Spain. Portugal here gets Brazil. The French territory is here in kind of this blue. The British are going to be in red. Russia is over in Alaska, and the Dutch is in purple. Right along here in some of the Caribbean islands, the gray is the unclaimed territories. That is the result of the age of exploration. This is going to lead, as all the Native Americans will be killed, to African labor being used first in the Caribbean in South America, then in North America, as Africans will capture their enemies, bring them to the coast to sell, giving us the famous triangle trade. Slaves will come to the Americas to do the labor, whether it was mining gold and silver, harvesting sugar, lumber, tobacco, cotton. That will all be taken back to Europe to be turned into finished products. Textiles and rum and manufactured goods would be sold or traded for slaves, and the whole process repeats itself. So what we're going to talk about tomorrow is the Columbian Exchange, and we will go over this map of the cyclical goods and resources being shared and sold. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. It's kind of a fun one, and it's short today, and we'll talk to you soon.